with Ali today, and we're here to talk to you about nicotine management. So, why? The why with nicotine use is an important consideration, I guess. A lot of people, maybe they consider cutting back or quitting, but they don't think about why they actually use nicotine in the first place. So that's where we'd like to begin today. So there's a lot of reasons that people will depend on nicotine. Often it's to cope with a mental health issue. It can be because it's addictive, obviously, we know that, but where does that start? Sometimes it comes from anxiety, depression, past trauma, even unprocessed emotions, definitely stress, and managing, the day-to-day and the big things that we have to cope with. Social and behaviour factors, if maybe people in your family or friends smoke or use nicotine, then it's more likely to be something that you will try and then potentially get addicted to. It can be a very sensory experience as well, so it can be something that people enjoy and crave that real sensory time, as well as many perceived benefits.
But mental health issues aside, there's also some other reasons why people smoke, and mostly it's because it feels good. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, right? If they are addicted, it could be to relieve cravings. If they're not coping with their emotions, it could be to self-regulate. If they don't actually learnt any other strategies of how to process those big emotions or not. Similar to how some people, if they abuse alcohol, they might drink in order to, say, calm themselves down or process something.
Numb it out.
And then also just to ease loneliness as well. So smoking can be quite a social thing, given you have to go outside and there's only certain spots you can go to. So, you think about beer gardens and areas and clubs and pubs where there's smoking and how people seem to be having a chat.
Yeah.
So, that could be difficult to miss out on.
Workplaces, and then
that too.
Even if it's something that you do in your home and it kind of connects you with your community because you're outside and your neighbours pass by and things like that. You can feel, or even, I know my grandpa with his magpies while he smoked. So it can be that you're connected rather than alone.
Yeah, for sure, and that's a huge motivator to do something. So for some people, it's actually a good stop break in their day. So it forces them to slow down and just stop and think. So it can also relieve stress, but then also force them to take a break. So to physically go outside, physically stop what they're doing and focus on something. Some people actually do say that it helps them with regulating their weight, and that weight loss is a huge issue and one reason why people are a bit concerned about stopping with nicotine use. And then also, like what you said, it's just the sensory experience. So for some people, it's the taste, it's the smell, it's the act of smoking. It's just a habit, and habits can be really difficult to break.
Yeah, especially when they're long-standing for a lot of people. So, I guess we're here today to talk about, potentially how to help you break some associations that you might have if you are finding that nicotine's an issue. So if that association is with, as we described, the timeout factor, and you'll be looking for that physical timeout, the mindfulness time. Maybe it's to help you avoid things in your life or big feelings such as frustration, fear, sadness. You may not want to avoid joy, but maybe you do because it's a habit and it's what you do. So in terms of knowing this, being aware of why you smoke, I think understanding it is a big part of then helping you to break some of these associations or change them up. So other than, the timeout, there's also other reasons, I guess. There's pleasure that people use it for. So,
I mean, most of the time we're motivated to do things because they feel good, right? Or we perceive that there's a good reason for
avoiding uncomfortable or painful situations, which is where I guess we're, avoiding that feeling of craving or, dependence.
But then also seeking something that's comfortable and familiar.
Yeah.
So it can be comforting, especially if it's a long-term habit and you associate that with comfort. It can provide a sense of rest and relief or peace. Forces you to feel still or actually very aware of your body. So people may not be very aware of their body and their bodily sensations, but they will be very aware of the feeling of the nicotine smoke going into the lungs or the taste.
Even blowing out, I know.
Yeah.
That used to be part of the sensation for people of actually seeing it and feeling connected to the air.
Yeah. And then on that, a sense of relief and satiation or satisfaction that you've met that craving. And then also, like I said before, just it becomes a habit, and it's a lot easier to follow habits than to break them. So
100%. We are creatures of habit, aren't we? And we're going to give you some stats on this. If you are considering cutting back or quitting, there's some really great tools that counsellors use. This is one called a decisional balance, and it's basically there to support you to think about all of these things we were talking about there, in terms of there will be advantages for you of smoking and obviously disadvantages. So not being naive to those and actually putting them all out there on the table, realizing that there are losses when it comes to you smoking, quitting and cutting back, as well as gains. So if you can become really aware of that and spend some time working with a therapist, it can help you then to process the loss or process the grief that you're giving up if you stop or you cut back or you make it not as pleasant. So we're going to also talk to you about the how.
Yes.
How do you manage it?
That's right. And how do we go about it? So the evidence suggests that quitting will be easier after you make some of these small changes. And feel free to pause the video if you wanted to have a bit of a read of each of these in detail, but we'll just quickly go through. So the first one is using the 5-minute time-out rule. So that's every time that you feel like you want a cigarette or a nicotine product, you wait 5 minutes before you end up feeling that need. And that's going to help you with improving your confidence to deal with your cravings. Then following from that, you can postpone by 1 hour the lighting of your first cigarette or first vape or whatever nicotine product is. You can actually substitute smoking with a different behavior, like having a piece of gum, going for a walk, or doing deep breathing. And then hopefully that gives you enough time to actually wait for the craving to pass. You can also change your eating habits. So if you end meals or snacks with a food that won't lead to a cigarette, so say you have an association with, say, fast food or with alcohol or with something and a cigarette, maybe try and avoid those. And then have a think about some really healthy, nourishing foods that will make you feel good. And if it helps, you can make a list of that. And so you can always consult that if you need it.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
You can also break your routine up. So you can try holding your cigarette with a different hand, take smaller puffs, smoke somewhere else, do it standing, use rubber gloves, hold it between your thumb and your pointer, and then swap that with something that you enjoy doing, like having a cup of coffee, going for a nice walk, getting a breath of fresh air or something.
So you're just trying to reassociate smoking with less of a habit. So obviously we know there's different pathways formed in our brains with habits, and they're the easy ones to take. So if you're doing it differently, then you're also thinking about it. So you're making it less kind of mindless.
Yeah, it's a more conscious action then. And then when it's more conscious, you're able to regulate it a bit more.
Correct. Yeah, we want to be aware of what we're doing. We don't want to be kind of not thinking about it.
That's right. And then you can also try switching to a brand of cigarettes that you don't like. Or maybe one with the lower tobacco content. And then that might also break up the automatic nature of smoking or nicotine use. So then we can resist what we were just talking about, that automatic smoking, so that smoking without thinking, or that nicotine use without thinking. If you're a cigarette smoker, it's only smoking the cigarettes that you really want. So don't just catch yourself before you do it reflexively. If you're a smoker, don't empty your ashtray. It's a really good way to actually sort of
see it. You would kind of notice it, because I know if it's on the table and you see a lot of them there, you'll realise.
It's a visual reminder of what you're doing. And we've said here that the sight and smell of stale cigarette butts can be very unpleasant. Similar to vapes, you can always see how much of the vape liquid you've used up as a good indicator of how much. Or similar for chewing tobacco or whatever your other nicotine product is. just having an idea visually of how much you're using can be a very good motivator to stop or reduce. And then also have a think about when you do go to automatically reach for that cigarette or nicotine product. Then if you use the opposite hand, or you can put it in an unfamiliar location. So then that way, again, it breaks it up from being automatic. And then the last one is, if you light up many times a day without thinking about it, try to look into a mirror each time. So again, it's just breaking that up, and you've got that visual cue as well.
It's like brain retraining.
Yeah, a little bit. So if you see yourself doing something that you don't really want to do, you might be more likely to stop yourself from doing it.
And maybe like I'd be trying to think about making something else the center of the world at the same time. So
yes,
I think that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah,
there's a better association to something else rather than cigarette or nicotine being the key association.
Yeah, something positive though. We don't want to replace like for like, but something that's a healthy habit that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So if you're not quite ready to completely quit, that's okay. That's a huge step. So you might consider reducing your nicotine use. So you could think about smoking only half of each cigarette before throwing them away.
Be expensive though.
It would, and that would be pretty hard, especially at the moment. But that is something that could work for some people. Or deciding to smoke during certain hours of the day, or just making a plan that you will end up reducing the amount of products you'll use.
And I wonder if how much of that would be, you know, focusing on the cost as well, you know, because that would be, what else could I buy for that, you know, price that I'm paying for the smokes that I'm not noticing I'm even smoking. So
that's it. Yeah. You're using that sort of financial benefit as well to help motivate.
Especially if you got a holiday in there instead of smoking, it'd be pretty decent reward.
Yeah, for sure. And then another suggestion is, if smoking's a social activity for you, to make it awkward. So stop buying them. Say, for example, with cigarettes, you can stop buying them by the carton. So make sure that you finish one pack before you buy another. So in that way, you have to constantly go and interact with someone to buy it. And that might be a way to discourage you from doing it. Stop carrying them with you at home or at work. Make them difficult to get. Keep your nicotine products in one place and always go to that place to smoke. So again, it's causing you to physically go somewhere else, making it a little bit less convenient. Therefore, you might be less motivated to do it, and less automatic, like what we were talking about before. And then also reduce the amount of places that you will smoke. So maybe you no longer can smoke in the car, your favorite chair, or the bedroom. And again, it just makes it a little more inconvenient.
Yeah, you can't just reach for it. You've got to actually decide, do I want to go
consciously? Yes, for sure. So this is also just saying, so we said about making it awkward, this is making it unpleasant, so similar thing. Use nicotine product in a way that's unpleasurable. So for example, if you like to smoke socially, smoke by yourself. You can look at the message or image on the box. You can look at yourself in the mirror smoking. Try to make it an unpleasurable experience, and you'll hopefully release that hook. So it's similar to the point about the ashtray, to collect all your cigarette butts in one large glass container. And then you can also only smoke outside, which I think is a common thing now. Smoking and vaping is a requirement mostly. But yeah, if it's cold or raining or miserable, you might find it a little bit difficult to find the motivation to keep going.
Yeah, and in a not so nice spot as well. You know, they say face the yucky part of your house or your yard, so that you're looking at the work you're going to do or something. And I think that's important, because if it's associated with the nice pleasure that you get from being outside, maybe do something else out there that gives you that pleasure.
Well, look at some traffic. You know,
and we know this sounds easier. You know, we're not saying that this is easy by any means. It's one of the hardest things that you might do, but just some suggestions. We also would really encourage you to work with a health professional. There's a lot of support available to you, so please contact one of your local health team, and think about it as not a quick necessarily something you have to do, but just something you can start to process and consider and make a part of your plan.
Yeah, and as the cliche goes, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So whatever your single step is,
One of those things we talked about today.
Hopefully, one of those strategies helps.
Yeah.
And please do seek the support to help you on your